Okay.
You are my oldest friend out here, by the way.
Okay. Wow.
Introduce.
That makes us sound young.
Yeah. I'll introduce the listeners. This is Jorge. And Jorge, I actually don't think I've ever actually said your last name. So if you don't mind saying your last name.
I would love for you to try
please.
first.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, you try.
Oh, no, I need it sounded out. I need to see it in front of me.
Okay.
So say it, and I'm going to see if I can repeat it.
I kind of want to challenge you on this one. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
It's Valladares.
Oh, Valladares. Valladares. Okay, cool. So Jorge Valladares.
Yes.
And we met about 3 years ago in a band. It was we were both trying to pursue some musicianship, and we didn't stay in that group, but we managed to stay together, hanging out.
Yeah.
And we've tried different iterations of bands, and we wanted to get a reggae project together, and it never really worked. It worked for a little bit, but now we're actually finally in a band for the first time, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah. And we've I mean, what we've had is like I get a lead and I call you, and you get a lead and you call me, and we've been trying to find something.
That is it. And we finally did. So what's interesting about what we found is it was your original band.
Yeah.
And I was a fill-in for that band. Anybody that's listened to Jason and Mindy podcast, or now the Break from the Grind podcast, already knows all this because I've said these stories many, many times. But yeah, you had a lead for me. I filled in, and then they lost their drummer, so they asked me, and then we lost a player, and now you're part of the group, and it's this big full circle thing, and it's awesome to be able to play music with you.
I agree.
After 3 years of trying.
Yeah.
But more importantly, you're a friend of mine, and we've maintained that friendship. And I thought it'd be really great to have this, you'd be my first interview, to have this discussion about breaking from the grind. All right. So what does that mean? Minnie and I have talked about, we broke from the grind of corporate America, but it's on a smaller scale too. Like your grind is whatever it is that you do, which we'll get into in a minute. And I guarantee you have to have that work-life balance, right? So what does that mean for you? So let's first introduce yourself and talk about your family and where you're from, and then we'll get into what your grind is.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
I was born and raised there until I was 24. I left Brooklyn at 24. And I met my wife in Brooklyn when I was 12 when I met her. Yeah. And she was my girlfriend when we were young. And I mean, I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with my upbringing in the city. You know, in many ways, I love the city. I miss it sometimes. I don't think it's the same place that I left, but I think it's important for people to know that about me, that's where I'm from. That's where I grew up. We moved here after 9/11. So when 9/11 happened, I was working in the financial district in New York, just doing like a temp job there. My wife and I were recently married. Our daughter was a month old.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, 9/11 was a tough time for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And the difficulty it presented for us is economic instability. You know, so it was a temp job I had. It wasn't like a career position or anything. And at the time, I didn't have any education. I dropped out of high school, like at the end of the 9th grade, beginning of the 10th grade. I just, you know, I didn't have any education, and I did get a GED, and actually, you don't know the story. You might like this story. I got my GED because I was picked up by a program for inner city kids, and if you were at least 16 and a half, they would bring you into this program and give you the couple credits that you needed if you didn't have enough. And then they'd allow you to sit for the GED test. In this program where you got, you know, the couple credits, I had an English teacher who was an English teacher by day, jazz musician by night in the city. He's a guitar player, and he loved his work. He loved what he was doing, and a lot of my classmates were either young girls who were already parents who had children, or young men who had already been in jail or had other kinds of problems. And, you know, I could tell he was trying to give us as much of a traditional school experience as possible. And he once asked us, if anybody would want to stay behind and learn how to play music, and he brought in like a bunch of donated instruments, and he was the first person to kind of hand over a guitar and say, here, try this one.
That's great.
Yeah. And Stand By Me was one of the first things that he taught me how to play. First time I got a guitar in my hand, and it was an incredible experience. I didn't stop playing since then. That's in addition to like getting a GED out of that, I got music.
Well, what I like about this story is that it's a failure, sort of, right? I mean, not getting your high school diploma can be perceived as a failure. We had that in common, by the way. I did not get my high school diploma also. I don't have a magical story where I met, an amazing jazz teacher while pursuing my GED. My story is interesting too, though, and I can share that with you. It led to the job that I had for 15 years, which is pretty wild. But it kind of interesting why it's kind of a thing where embrace when things don't go your way or go the way you think they should, right? Because it led to your introduction to music, which that's how we met. I mean, and it's probably, when we get there, I'm sure it's one of the things that you use to break from the grind, ironically enough. But thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, that's music is a life-giving thing. I don't even know how
it is
to
life.
Explain it. Yeah.
It is life. It's been my life for sure.
Yeah. So, you're right. I think about like, there are lots of things that happen in life and have happened to me in my life where at the time it feels like failure or feels difficult.
Yeah.
And then later in life, the significance of it changes.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the first of many things where it felt like a failure at the time. And then later in life, it becomes something else.
That's so cool. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So I didn't set foot in a college classroom until after we got here to Central Florida. Mm-hmm. So we moved to Orlando. It was my mother-in-law, my wife, me, my 1-month-old daughter, my brother-in-law, and his wife, and we all moved into a house together and tried to make it, and we did. We since we've been here, it's been absolutely incredible. Each of us have had a really good life here as individuals, and as a family, we've also had a really good life.
Yeah. So Florida's been good to you.
Yeah. Central Florida, particularly. And now in this area where I live, just a couple of miles around me, I have my brother, my mother's here, my sister-in-law and my niece, my sister lives here with her husband and her kids. And so all of my family is here. My brother-in-law lives here with his wife and his kids, and my mother-in-law lives, we're in the same house. And she's with us, and we've all prospered in lots of ways.
That's great.
So it has been a really great move.
So how did you get into your current career? How did you end up going from not having a GED to doing what you do now, which is pretty remarkable?
Well, New York City is an interesting place. You can hustle in New York City. You know, if you wanted to work, you could. And when we got here, it wasn't like that.
Not like that.
You got to do some. You need something.
It's true. LA's like that too. I'm from LA, and you can hustle and make a living. I mean, I never got a degree and made really great money at my corporate job, so I get that perspective.
Yeah. That's the thing I really appreciate about us too. You're from LA, I'm from New York City.
Yep.
And there are a lot of conversations that you and I have had, and I haven't verbalized it, but I've always thought, man, that's so great. This guy's from the other side of the country, and it's evident in the way that we interact with each other. We're so different.
It's a grit thing. I mean, I feel like it's a grit thing. You just grind it out and you make stuff happen.
Yeah. Musically, we're different. Our attitudes are different. Like we're very different. It's so interesting that it kind of draws us together.
Yeah.
A little bit.
That's what's good about differences.
Yeah.
They make a good pairing.
I think so.
Yeah.
So I got here and I went to the community college. And I went in with a lot of fear and anxiety. I wasn't sure about myself as a student
or what you wanted to do. Did you have a vision of what you wanted to do?
I had an idea. Of what. So that job that I was working in the financial district was in a human resources department.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, that's the only thing I know about corporate America is that there's this department. And so I said, okay, I'll do that just because I didn't have any better ideas. Yeah. And that's what I thought I was going to go to school for. So I started at the community college. And I was working at the same time. We had a young family and, trying to make it in other ways. Had to work and go to school. And so I kind of stuck with the HR thing for a while. And so it took me, it was super slow. I was a terrible student. I am, well, I should say that I recognize now I felt like a terrible student.
Okay.
And I realize now that I'm just a very slow, methodical learner. And when I learn things, I tend to learn them pretty deeply. Like I take my time in learning songs, like even learning songs, and and when I do, it stays with me, and it's useful to me. I can apply the things that I learn. I didn't realize that then. How did you feel about yourself? Did you feel like you were behind the curve? Did you feel like always?
Always. And so and while you're going to school, what were you doing to make ends meet?
I was working clerical jobs in HR departments.
Okay.
I was trying to stay in the field. Just met some great people along the way, and not so great people along the way too.
Yes.
I learned some difficult lessons in the workplace, and found some angels too.
Yeah.
That wanted to see me succeed, were interested in me and my family and the things that I cared about. And that was always really great when you came across people like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when did you discover that HR was not it? Or that you wanted to maybe take it to a different level?
So 9/11 was a cataclysmic event that affected lots of people. And then the one that we had next was the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So 2008 comes around.
Yep.
I am, and 2008, I'm at the tail end of a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get it now. I'm doing these clerical jobs. I'm about to break through. I'm about to have a degree and, be able to like climb. Great Recession comes around. Me and many other people, particularly in this area, I ended up without a job.
Oh, wow.
Without income. I was unemployed for 16 months.
Wow.
At the beginning of 2008. And, oh man, I was, I felt like I was back in that. It felt like a regression. I felt like I was back in 2001.
Wow.
And so, that was a tough time, man. That was such a tough time. Well, it was tough in some ways. It's like the dropping out thing.
Yeah.
At the moment, it hurt and it was frightening. It was scary. And now there are so many things about it that were great. It was such an important experience.
So name one thing that was great about it. I have a list because I participated in it just as much as everybody else, right? We all did. So what's one great thing that came from it for you?
I got to walk my kids to school every day.
Oh,
so my daughters were in elementary school right near the house, and they still, my daughters are adults now, and a lot of times when we get together, they'll talk about things they remember from childhood. Many of those memories, I don't know if they realize this, but they're coming from that window of time when we were together for so many hours. We spent a lot of time together. So I would drop them off and pick them up and make the meals, and, things like that.
That's great.
Oh, I savor that. And that's just one of many things that came out of that time.
Mine was Mindy and I were able to buy a house for $55,000 because houses were so cheap.
Yeah.
And we made no money. I mean, we both made no money. We both worked in retail, really poor paying jobs, and we were able to buy a house. So there is a silver lining usually with everything. So bachelor's degree, and what was your primary focus?
It was the bachelor's degree was in organizational behavior.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of my classes were around training and interviewing and hiring and organizational development.
Such an interesting turn you took, I think. I mean, I guess not really, because you're still dealing with people. We're not still yet to what you do yet, which is great because people are like, "What does he really do? We don't know what he does."
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I at that 16-month point, I'm desperate, and I'm thinking to myself, I will do anything. I will do anything. I'll do any job, and I would be at home praying, and I'd say, God, if you give me any job that you give me, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it the best way I possibly can.
Wow. I
am going to do it and smile and learn to love whatever it is that presents itself. And I took that attitude to a part-time job at a community college, which is where I started, right? The community college that I went to. My wife was working there. She's worked there a long time. And she got a lead from a colleague that said, hey, they're looking for this part-time, like frontline advisor kind of thing. I was like, yes, let's go. And at the time, I was having a little bit of a conflict because I had made this promise, like I'll take any job. Another thing that emerged that I didn't expect was that old insecurity about not being a good enough student. That started to emerge too in that moment. So both these feelings came up, and maybe even today, I think that's still around. So now I teach at that college. I'm a psych professor at that college, and I think there's a little part of that that's still there. I still kind of remember how overwhelming an institution can be to someone who has had failures at this place.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I took that job.
What a great perspective to bring, though. What a great perspective to bring to your students who may be like you, who take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Has that ever happened where you've had students like that and you were able to have some empathy or have a better plan for a student like that?
I'm trying to imagine a time where that hasn't.
Okay.
That hasn't been the case. Where that hasn't been the case, because where I'm trying to think about where students are.
Okay.
Because they don't arrive in the same place.
No, they don't.
They arrive in different places with different experiences. And, you have students who are like me, maybe, who are already parents and, working full time.
Wild.
Now you've got students who were in high school during the pandemic.
Oh, boy. That's got to be a different thing.
That's something to think about. And there's a real big difference between a student who was in high school during the pandemic and a student who graduated, even if it was just before.
Yeah.
There's some major differences in their academic skill.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting.
And their academic skill and their ability to use technology for learning.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
So you started teaching there, and when did you get into psychology? When did you decide that was the path you wanted to take? Because it's a great path. I thought about doing that when I was young. I really wanted to do that. I turned to yoga and different things like that because I'm lazy. I don't want to get a degree, so I just chose to get a 200-hour yoga certification. But when did you decide that?
I decided that when I was working at the college, working specifically with students with disabilities.
Okay.
And so I started there as like a part-time advisor. And then, I started working specifically with students with disabilities, and that work, it ignited me in some way. Learning about, I used to think a lot about, you and I have had conversations about like race and gender and status.
Yep.
And I used to have this really, I refer to myself as a minority. And that taught me a different lesson about that. That is an oversimplification, that term. And when I started working with students with disabilities, I really started to think about, diversity in a different way. I started to think about like the things that are typically expected of a student, the kind of like the standard for students, and what happens when students fall outside of that standard. What is the responsibility of the institution, of the individual representatives of the institution? How do we define learning? And how do we make accommodations for learning when people aren't similarly situated when they arrive? And so it had me thinking about all of these things. And I started getting interested in also the different, as I was receiving like medical documentation from people, clinical documentation from people, I started really getting interested in it. So I would read these very detailed clinical reports, and it was really engaging for me. I'd work too long. I'd do too much reading in there just because it was interesting for me. And so I got really interested in how people learn.
Wow, interesting.
Some of the challenges they might face.
Did you have any mentors or anything that were steering you in that direction, or was it literally something, a light came on and you said, "This is the direction I want to go in"? I'm sure it's conversations with your spouse, all those things, but usually you go in a direction because you're feeling that direction to some degree, or maybe you have a mentor or something like that. I mean, what was it, just a moment, or was it a gradual?
So yes to all of the above. So as far as spouses are concerned, my wife's name should be on every diploma, on every paycheck, on every award, on everything. None of these things were singular accomplishment. Yeah. Like I've never really embraced the like self-made man thing. There's nothing self-made about me. There's a cast. There's a whole cast.
I feel the same way.
Of people that include my wife, my mother, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, my sister. All of these people are critical to, what I'm doing now and who I am, the person that I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no singular thing. I'm the guy in the chair. Yes. There's a huge cast that comes with this. So, there was the family support. Family support has been huge. And whenever I had to make big decisions, like I want to apply to this college, there was like a family meeting that goes with that. At the time when I was unemployed during the Great Recession, I considered the military a couple of times in my life. I considered the military, and that decision always came with a family meeting. Like, it's like, I'm thinking about this. Everybody would get together and, we sit and talk, So there's that, whenever I'm making a decision, whether it's go to college, pursue a major, there was always some kind of family discussion around it because it required all of us.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great. It's a great practice. And you do that with the bands too, by the way. You're really great about organizing a meeting and having a conversation, which is it's one of your skills for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if ever somebody says, "Hey, we have a gig on this date," what do I say? Got to check with the wife, got to check with my wife.
Absolutely.
With my family.
Who doesn't?
And,
I'm exactly the same way. I've got to check with her. Of course, my schedule's wide open because this is what I'm,
That's right.
I need the paycheck.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. So you get to this point where you've decided that you want to get into psychology. So you already had your bachelor's.
I had my bachelor's degree.
So how long did it take you to get to the point where you had the credentials to teach now psychology?
Okay, so I told you I'm a slow learner.
Yeah.
The bachelor's degree took me a long time.
Okay.
I think it was like, so we moved here in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
I think I graduated with a bachelor's degree in 2009.
Okay.
2008, 2009.
That's not that bad, by the way. That's not that bad. It would take me longer than I'd still be working on my bachelor's. I'm still working on my bachelor's.
That's right. You are working. It's a work in progress. Actually, you know what? I don't think everybody should get a degree. I think
that's a great discussion, and I think we should have that discussion.
Okay, let's do that.
There's more to come. I mean, we're going to do another show after this one. We're going to have a pretty interesting conversation that we hope people will enjoy. But we're going to have many more conversations, I think. So yeah.
Okay.
So it took you a while.
So it took me a while. And then there's a basic level psychology course at the college that I had become interested in. It felt to me like the next step. Like, I want to teach that. I want to teach that class. And so the college was full of great mentors. At the college where I work, there was no shortage of mentors or people who could see me and say, and ask, "What do you want to do? Let me help you do whatever it is that you want to do." And when I decided that I wanted to at least teach this one class, that's what I did. I went to one of those really great mentors and I said, "Hey, look, I want to teach this. How can I do that?"
Mm-hmm.
And they helped me lay out some steps. I got at Florida community colleges, the rule is that you have to have any master's degree to be able to teach a course. And then you need at least 15 graduate credits in the discipline that you want to teach.
Okay.
So I wanted to teach in psychology. I just needed a master's degree and 15 graduate credits in psychology. So I found one. I found a program and I did that. And I actually tore through it pretty quickly. I did it full time in the number of semesters, which is something I had not ever done. And it actually wasn't until that master's program that I started to read textbooks.
Really?
Yeah. I was always very curious, but not very focused. And I would read little bits of things, here and there. I could read like a journal article, and I could read small bits, but to read like entire books,
wow,
that's a skill that didn't come to me until I got to graduate school.
That's wild.
And it was an incredible experience because I was reading entire textbooks.
It sounds agonizing.
First time.
It really does. It sounds like good on you. Good on you for doing that. Taking one for the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For those of us who never want to read a textbook.
I think if you find the thing, the thing,
of course.
I think if you find the thing, it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So I say that experience really, I savored it. Like it was really really a nice experience.
And I'm joking, of course. When it's something that you love, I mean, the most agonizing thing to someone else is not to you, right? When you're enjoying something, you can be immersed in it, and it doesn't feel like a grind necessarily.
Listen, dude, I've seen you record music, and there's something that happens to you that you don't even realize is happening. It's interesting to watch you like set us up and get the mics plugged in and do the thing, and you know, you get possessed by the thing that you're doing.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And someone who's not that way will probably look at you and go, what the hell are you doing? You know, how can you even?
Well, even in building a website, I mean, that's something that people would not want to do, right? And we're going to get to, you asked me to actually build your website for the business that you currently you own. And it's not that difficult for me. I mean, I built I did a SharePoint at my other job, and nobody wanted to do that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, for other people, for some people, one thing is a grind, for others it is not. And it's super interesting. Like reading a textbook does not sound fun to me.
I am glad you said that, because I have been thinking something.
Okay.
You know, this is the break from the grind.
It is.
And you verbalized something that was on my mind, which is my grind is not necessarily your grind.
Right.
Right. Your grind may be the thing that excites me, you know.
You're right. And that's
your yuck may be my yum, you know.
Exactly. That's why it's such a great conversation to have about what your grind is. And when I say grind, it could be something you very much enjoy. So like, for example, what I do, I podcast and we do our thing. Yeah, it's my grind, but I have to work harder at reminding myself to take a break from it. Whereas before, working the corporate job that I did not love, I needed the break on the weekend, something to do, something to get away so that I could be prepared to go back and do something that was draining me, right? And so as opposed to something that's filling me up. When you're doing something that you love, you still need work-life balance. That's the harder part, though, is actually carving it out and scheduling it into your day. And I think that's probably where you are, because you're probably one of those people similar to me that will keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And you have to really be conscious and remind yourself to stop, take a break, spend time with your family, play music, whatever it is that you do. So you teach psychology, but you also are a counselor. And that is kind of the big thing that you're really, I think that's what you're moving into wanting to do most of the full time.
Yeah. So I started with teaching that one psychology class, and then I went into full time.
Yeah.
So I became a tenured professor.
Awesome.
At that
hard
college.
to break away from that, right? Tenured is such a strong word.
It is. It is. And, you know, there are some connotations to it. It's like, you know, there's some stability to it.
Yeah.
Some, you know.
Yeah.
And I love it.
If you're still getting rewarded by it, why walk away from it? But there will become a moment where there's some conflict in schedule.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. And in capacity.
Yeah.
I'm limited.
More importantly.
Yeah. There's only so much that I can do. And so, you know, I'm teaching psychology, and I start thinking about, and I feel like I'm connecting with students. My office hours are just packed, you know, I'm going from teaching classes to talking to students individually. And I started to see kind of a limitation to working at the college, because it seemed to me that the people that are, you know, if you can walk through the doors of a college, then you're already in a pretty good place. And I'm not saying that there aren't people in college that struggle, and, you know,
of course,
but there are so many people out there for whom it would be a dream come true to even fill out like a college application. You know,
right?
There's so many people that would love nothing more than to take a class or to walk in one day. Yeah. And those people started to, they were on my mind. You know, I remember myself, right? They were, you know, for a long time in my life, I stayed away from schools, and I remember feeling there must be more of that I know they're out there. Yeah. And so how can I work with them? How can I get out there? How can I get beyond the doors of the college?
Interesting.
And so I decided on clinical mental health counseling.
Okay.
So I was going to get another degree, and it could have been to get a doctoral degree and become like an administrator at the college and continue to grow at the college, or I could get some parallel degree to extend beyond the doors of the college. And so that's what I chose.
You chose.
Yeah.
And so you opened your current business.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my second master's degree is in clinical mental health counseling, and I am currently a licensed mental health counselor in Florida.
Okay.
And what that means is I can provide clinical mental health counseling services to the public. And so I can do that a couple of ways. I can work in an academic institution. I can work at colleges or at hospitals. And what I decided to do was to work in private practice.
Okay.
And so I about 4 years ago, I started working as a solo practitioner, just trying it out, discovering it, feeling it out. And it has been an incredible career, an incredible parallel to my full-time work. And so what I learned from, being an instructor was informing the work that I was doing in the counseling space.
Right.
And then vice versa. The things I was learning working with clients and patients was informing my work, in the classroom. And
that's great.
It continued to grow. I was growing in both directions. Like in my work, I was becoming stronger as an educator, becoming stronger as a counselor. And now that private practice, ARIA Counseling, has grown. We're a group practice now.
That's great.
It's me and 3 other clinicians. We accept major insurances. We're each trained in really specific modalities in therapy, and we specialize in different populations. But it is going incredibly well. I've done I appreciate you working on the site. I haven't done very much marketing.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah,
that's a great problem to
Yeah.
have. You don't have to do a lot of marketing. That's great.
Yeah, and so on the one side, it's going really well. On the other hand, I'm really stretched.
Yes. So let's get into that.
Yeah.
Right. So you're really stretched. And it can be a grind, even though you love it. So what do you do, which is probably the more valuable thing, right? What part of the conversation, because everybody's got their grind. What do you do to break from that grind and find that balance? Could I make a T-shirt out of it? Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I take the things that I do for enjoyment. I take as seriously as I take my work.
Okay. So one of them is music.
Yeah.
And what does that do? What does it do for you? What is it? Because I know it's different for every person, but what does music do for you?
Music. So to be specific, I'm a bass player.
Yes.
I'm a bass player. I used to be a guitar player.
Still are. You still play, but you don't play. You're not in a band, but so you consider yourself a bass player.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting.
I don't have the same connection to a guitar that I have to a bass.
That's interesting. That's an evolution there.
Because the guitar would be a grind.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah. The guitar I play the guitar up here, and I play the bass here.
That's pretty cool.
So no one knows this better than you, right? You're the closest person to me musically in proximity, and the instruments that we're playing off of each other. So when soon as we plug in, and you count off, this goes off. This is done, right? This is done, and I'm kind of feeling and just noticing and reacting and responding, and I feel more connected to my humanity when I'm doing that. I feel more connected to my body and to other people, the people that I'm playing with and people that I see that are moving. I don't know if you've ever done this, but like when we were playing at these gigs, the people who are moving to the music, like they catch your attention because they're in it with you.
Those are the ones you're playing to.
They're in it with you. And it's like, there is no other place in the world, and there's no other situation where I feel what I feel when I'm playing the bass. The bass is a heavy resonant instrument. I like to play with an amp. I told you I might go ampless, but at
the next gig,
the amp though, it also gives something. So there's something really physical about it. There's something spiritual about it. There is, it's unlike, I love my work, and I love music, but they're different. Playing bass is a different thing.
Do you find that it fills you up and, prepares you for maybe this sound like a strange question, but if you're going through it, something's bothering you, and a gig can save the day. I mean, it can make the day better. It can make the rest of the week better. It can, it you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay.
When we finish our gigs, we stay around and talk for like another hour.
You're a little high. You're still a little high off of it. Yeah.
Yeah. You're amped up.
Yeah.
And that doesn't end at the end of the night. That high lingers. It just sticks around.
It's an addiction. I mean, it really is an addiction. And it's funny that you said that the guitar is a grind for you. I started out on bass. And I love playing bass, but the bass is a grind for me. The drums are not. The drums are free. The drums are a place where I can be really free. I don't have to overthink. I can get into a pocket. I don't think. I'm just grooving, enjoying it. So that's interesting that we're a little different in that regard, but we have the bass connection.
Yeah. The instrument is different for us, but the feeling that we're looking for is similar.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything else that you do that's a bit of a break from the grind?
Oh, dude, when you asked me to do this, I wasn't sure if I was going to admit this to you.
Okay, I want to hear it.
Oh, damn. I play a super nerdy video game.
I love it. I want to hear it.
I play a super nerdy video game that it is purely indulgent.
Okay.
It is purely indulgent. So I have a one-track mind. So I don't do many things. I have to do just a few things, small things. So there's the bass, and then there's video games. And I don't get to play very often. But when I do, it is planned. I take it very seriously. Like, everyone knows I'm going to do this.
Glass of wine, a little bit of beer. What do you you make a night out of it? Light a candle.
Well, we're only at the second hobby. I'll tell you about the third one when we're off air. Yeah, we're off air. I'll tell you about the candle and the wine.
That's where the candle comes in.
I grab a beer. The calendar has to be clear. The calendar has to be clear. I'm one of these wackos with the headset who's talking to a group of people.
Okay, but I still haven't heard what the game is yet.
Oh gosh, it's a game called Final Fantasy 14.
I've heard of it.
It's this like epic swords and sorcery kind of
cool.
thing.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I've been playing that for 10 years.
That is cool.
10
man.
years. Yeah.
So how often do you get to do it?
Probably like once a week.
Okay.
Once a week.
And then how much do you get lost in? How long are you sitting there? You're not up till 3 a.m. doing it, are you? That kind of thing.
Sometimes.
Oh wow.
Sometimes, not consistently.
So give me.
I could if you let me, but I can't.
2 hours, 1 hour,
2 hours.
Okay.
2 hours.
Did you get your fill out of that? Or do you walk away going, God, I really wish I could stay on for 3 hours?
I wish I could stay up till 3
because it's addicting. Those games are addicting.
They're very addicting.
But you know what? Music's that way too. I mean, the last gig we played, I was so looking forward to it. I was having such a kind of a stressful stretch of time. And I couldn't wait to get there and play. And it was over so fast.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I look forward to this all week long. And I got 3 hours of it. It's so hard. The hardest thing in life is to stop before it starts.
Yeah.
So that you can be in the moment with it. Instead, we're fidgeting. And it happens that way with music a little bit because is the sound right? I mean, the first 3-4 songs, you're trying to figure out if you can hear your bandmates or not. And then you're assessing the crowd, whether they're enjoying it. All those things go through your head. And if we could just go, you know what, from the very beginning, draw it in, bring it in, and have a good time.
Because we end up there anyway.
You do.
Right? We end up there anyway. We wait, and it doesn't matter how many times we do it. There's at least for me, there's always that period I wish I could have back. During that first half of the first set.
Yep.
It's like, why am I fucking obsessing?
Yeah.
Why am I obsessing about my tone and about, just let go, man.
Let it go.
Yeah. Because you're going to end up there anyway.
You prepared, you show up, and you let it go. I mean, that's one of the biggest things I learned. I mean, I did stand-up comedy for a little while, and that's one of the biggest things that you learn. Oh, scary. Talk about scary. They talk about jumping out of an airplane.
Yeah.
you know, or bungee jumping. That I think stand-up comedy is within that same category.
Yeah.
It's very, very scary. Nothing like music. It's a group setting, you know,
Yeah.
it's much different. But yeah, you prepare, and then when you get there, you throw it all away. You don't worry about that stuff so much, you know.
Yeah.
And another tip, if there's musicians listening, you know, sometimes you'll play to a bar that, and I don't know how many original bands you played in, but when you play an original band, sometimes you play to nobody. And even in cover bands, sometimes you play to nobody, or even worse, you play to a whole bunch of people that don't care that you're even there.
And we had something like that recently.
The last couple gigs.
Full place.
So what I do is I find that one person that's tapping their foot, or that one person that's moving, or the one person that is paying attention, and I play to that person the whole night.
Yeah.
You know, until I find a few more that come our way. But that's how I get through a gig where no one, you know, is paying attention. So Final Fantasy
14. And
graphics have got to be amazing at 14.
PlayStation, PC,
Xbox,
PlayStation and PC both.
Okay,
I can play on both.
Which do you like best?
It depends on what I'm doing. So if I can be by myself till 2-3 a.m., I'll play on the PC.
Why is that? Why does that make it? Is it different? The controller's got to be different, right? What are you using to control?
I use a controller.
Oh, you use a joystick
on the PC.
even then?
Yeah, even on the PC. But I use the PlayStation when I want to sit next to my wife and play. So sometimes we'll sit next to each other. She'll be on the Switch, and I'll be playing. Cool. So that's when I play on the PlayStation.
Okay.
So there, with video games and music, there is a difference.
Mm-hmm.
The video games are really indulgent, and you don't have to do anything to prepare for it.
No,
it's just super indulgent. It's like eating sweets.
Totally,
and you're not going to get anything out of it in the end.
It's an empty feeling, isn't it? On the other side of it,
it is.
What did I do with that time?
That's right.
It's like watching TV, kind of. Or you go, what did I do with that time? It's gone.
But you did enjoy it.
You did enjoy it. Of course, you found joy.
But it's that short-lived kind of thing that doesn't leave anything behind.
Yeah, which is different with music, right? I think that's different.
With music, there's a high barrier to entry.
Yep. Oh boy, is there ever.
Years and years, right?
Yep.
Years and years sunk into this. And you have to rehearse, and you have to practice yourself, and then rehearse with the group, and you're tinkering, and the equipment's not cheap, and you spend money, and
it's crazy.
And you risk things when you perform. There's a risk that comes with it, and there's a lot of pressure and anxiety. So the satisfaction that you get, I think college is this way too, where there's this a lot of preparation to it, and there's some suffering and anxiety, and then the satisfaction that you get out of it lasts longer.
Totally agree with you. It's still, even now, it still lives with you. I think it's just a part of who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, the last gig we played is still with me, that I was able to, just even to able to accomplish it. I recommend people get into something like that. There's a lot of different things that you can use to break from the grind. You gave two kind of really sort of opposite things, right? Playing video games, which you're right. Anybody can do that. And you've got being a musician, which not everybody can do that. I think if you should definitely have something in your skill, in your grind, in your break from the grind that does challenge you a little bit. If it's surfing or, I mean, something that's a little challenging.
Surfers, I respect surfers so much.
Yeah, our guitar player J-Rob is a surfer. He's good too, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen videos of him surfing. He's pretty good.
That is incredible. I have so much respect for that. For people that surf.
Me too. Yeah. I paddleboard, and I've tried to catch waves, and it's phenomenal disaster. But but the getting past the waves and just kind of paddleboarding and stuff, it's really, really fun. But so to finish up, how valuable do you think it is for people to have that balance? And it's an interesting thing to discuss, right? So the concept is break from the grind. Yeah. The grind is either a job you don't love or a job you do love. Either way, I think you still need some break from it. You have to have some break from it. So like, I'll give you an example. Mindy and I, we work a lot and we love what we do. And it's a grind. And sometimes you don't realize it's a grind until you start to getting to these points where you can't sleep at night and you're constantly thinking about it. And you really don't have, you don't really have any peace. Right. And so you have to go, you know what, let's go walk on the beach. Even if it's just a walk on the beach, it's that break. You just need that break from the grind. How valuable do you think that is? And do any of these types of conversations come up, with anybody that you're counseling?
Yeah, constantly. So in the counseling profession, counselor wellness is a big thing. How can I be helpful How can I be helpful to anybody if I can't take care of myself?
That's a great point. Yeah. And you're constantly giving advice, right? And offering people suggestion and steering them in a direction. When I was a yoga teacher, I thought it was incredibly important that if I was, I could only teach what I was practicing. I never felt good. And I'm saying that has to be the way. You've learned a lot. So you can offer these suggestions without having to. You may not have a need to practice some of the things you're teaching people in your own relationships, in your own life necessarily. But I imagine when you're giving that advice all the time, you've got to have a break from that.
Yeah, there are a couple of pitfalls. There are a few areas of risk. Kind of what you're saying is like you may even lose the ability to see things that you might be doing.
Oh, that's interesting.
And there can be a little bit of a loss of ability to be self-reflective, I think is a word.
Okay, that's a good point. Yep.
That is one of the symptoms of burnout. The onset of burnout. One of the things that starts to happen is we start to lose the ability to see ourselves, what's happening to us. The other thing is when you become exposed to some of the stories of suffering and sadness and pain, that has an impact on you.
Yeah.
And it's an insidious kind of impact that you almost don't notice it. Again, like some of the blindness, you don't notice it start to catch you. And actually some of the people in your family are often the people that start to notice these things first.
Really?
And they might send out some signals that, something's happening with you and something you need to be aware of. The other thing we do is that, a thing that I do anyway, for me, there's a period for a mental health counselor when they graduate that they have to be in clinical supervision. They need a senior level clinician supervising them, even if they're in private practice.
Okay.
And, even after I completed that requirement, I stay in supervision. So I have a clinical supervisor I meet with, and they're keeping eyes on me. And this is a person that checks me when I'm talking about my cases or when I'm talking just about my life. And they're noticing things about my workload or the way that I'm seeing things. It's their work to call me out on it. And
interesting.
Yeah. So that's something I have in place. So I do need, the music thing. It is part of me taking my work seriously also, the playing video games, it is something necessary. I've brought that up in supervision. My supervisor knows that this is something I do. And for them, it's like, okay, that's still happening. Good.
Balance.
Yeah.
So you find that like I do, that it's incredibly important to have that balance, have that break from the grind.
It's sustenance. Yeah. It's beyond important. It's a requirement. It's necessary.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, you may be harming others if you're not taking care of yourself. And not just in my work. Think about a teacher.
Everybody's work.
Yeah. Think about teachers and think about people who are operating heavy equipment.
Yep.
That may be struggling in their lives. If we're not taking care of ourselves, we could be putting others at risk.
So true.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
So it's a requirement, not a nice to have, necessary for us to do.
I love it. All right. I think I can make a t-shirt out of that. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. I could definitely make a t-shirt out of the video game one. I can do like an old, Nintendo, with controller. And then, yeah. I don't know if you've seen our designs, but there's one right behind us. It's kind of break from the grind. So doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to make a t-shirt out of that. But thank you so much for being on the podcast and take advice from Jorge. Get a break from the grind. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me the time, man.
Looking forward to that next gig. See you later.
Did we really fuck that up?
See you later. See you later. Thanks, man.
Thank you.